Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 30 transfer plans. I've got one free transfer. I'll be wildcarding in Game Week 31, so I can take a cheeky punt or two before I play that wildcard. If you do enjoy today's video and you get any use out of it, please do smash that like button. And if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, I will just start by saying I apologise if you can hear any noise in the background today. I live in the middle of the city centre and I record these videos on a Sunday evening, and usually Sundays are very quiet and peaceful. However, it is St. Patrick's Day today. So if you can hear anything in the background, anyone screaming, it is drunk people going past my window and I can only apologise. But I just wanted to start by discussing Game Week 29 because my goodness, what a game week. I would go as far as saying one of the strangest and most ridiculous game weeks I can remember in the history of FPL. Let me know down below, did you free hit in Game Week 29 and how many points did you score? I'm very interested to know because I think the biggest score I've seen so far was someone with 32, and there were literally people on social media saying, don't brag. Can you imagine a week where over 50% of the database play their free hit chip and 32 is a brag? I mean, it was ridiculous. My entire team blanked, right? No returns from my entire team. I took a -4. Obviously, I didn't play my free hit chip. And I'm somehow coming out of this with a 3k red arrow. I almost got a green arrow with my entire team blanking. And the ridiculous game week obviously started with that Reguilon red card. I, of course, am very happy that he didn't get any points and got minus points, but I know for some of you, that was a pretty poor outcome. I mean, we did say that Burnley had been playing very well, but for Reguilon to get sent off, them Fleck and concede as well, that just started the game week. And then from there, most of the template key players that a lot of us own just didn't return. I would love to know down below, though, did anyone actually get some points? Because if you owned the likes of Castagna and Robertson, or Muniz, or Wood, there are some players that picked up points, but at least a lot of the key ones like Son, Bowen, Watkins, Maddison, Tony, none of them did. My -4 was to bring in Maddison and Tony. And whilst I brought in Maddison and Tony for two players that blanked, because they also got only 2 and 1 points, I didn't even make back the 4 points. So my -4 wasn't particularly great. But in all honesty, if you'd have offered me going into the start of Game Week 29, on the back of obviously not playing a chip and taking a hit, a 3k red arrow, I would have definitely taken that. To be honest, I don't think there's more to say on Game Week 29. All I will say is it could have gone a little bit better for me. I know a lot of people obviously had some negative outcomes, but Charlie Taylor conceding was absolutely painful. He was on for an 8-pointer. I don't know if you even saw this. He was on for 2 bonus points as well. And it got to like the 83rd, 84th minute. And I was like, this might actually happen. The Charlie Taylor clean sheet might actually happen, but it didn't. And Areola, we was looking at 1 point. He was on 8 or 9 points with bonus points and a save point. He didn't get anything, but I'm seriously not going to complain. In a week like this, to only get a small red, I know a lot of people had it worse. And I do honestly think it is quite unlucky if you played your free hit this week. Lots of hindsight takes this was never a good week to play the free hit. It was a great week to play the free hit because it allowed you to focus on the surrounding weeks. And therefore, I just think there's a lot of bad luck involved. For all of the players that you picked to all blank, it's just not great. But I'm obviously delighted that it was low scoring, delighted to only get a small red. Now I have the wildcard, free hit, and bench boost still to play. So let's discuss, actually, before we look at my team for next week, the upcoming blanks and doubles, and discuss when I might now plan on playing my remaining chips. So guys, as well as the very disappointing Game Week 29 over the weekend, we also had the FA Cup quarter-final game. So we now know which teams have progressed to the FA Cup semi-final, and that gives us a lot more information around Game Week 34 double and the Game Week 37 double. So what you can see on your screen is courtesy of FPL Team, which is a fantastic website, and Planet FPL James. The two of them combine. It's basically the projections from James put onto that website to give us the fixtures that are projected based on what we've seen from James for Game Week 30 to Game Week 38. I will just say that we are extremely likely to get the confirmed doubles for 34 and 37 before the Game Week 30 deadline. So there's really very little use in me hypothesizing now because we will get that by the deadline we expect anyway, and we can at least make a good judgment now. But I just think it's worth discussing because lots of us don't want to switch off from FPL and we still want to tinker and think about our teams. And I think especially if you're wildcarding this week, it is good to know what we think will happen in the future. Basically, what has happened in the FA Cup is very, very good for those of you that free hit in 29 because now Game Week 34 looks really, really disappointing. So based on James's current projections, he's only projecting Bournemouth and Wolves to double in 34 now. So it would be a very bad game week. And it would mean for someone like me that has their free hit left, I probably wouldn't free hit in 34 now. So I now need to think about another week where I can play the free hit because it's pretty useless in that week. A lot of the teams that we'd have players from our fine fixtures, and it would only be Bournemouth and Wolves, and most people have 2 or 3 Bournemouth if they free hit in 29. So if you free hit in 29, this is looking very good for 34 now. I will just note, whilst James has predicted that those are the only 2 teams to double, there are numerous other teams that could double. So Arsenal and Liverpool can now double in 34. The reason for that, of course, is Liverpool losing in the FA Cup to Manchester United. Liverpool could now go into 34, which is massive. If Arsenal and Liverpool double in 34, that starts to look like a really decent week to free hit. But also, again, it means you can load up on Arsenal and Liverpool players with your transfers, and they would then have to double in 34. So I think that would suit pretty much all strategies if that was to happen. But there are further teams that could double in 34. We obviously know Bournemouth and Wolves, as is projected, but Palace, Everton, and Sheffield United could all double as well. But you can now see that double game week 34 certainly doesn't look as good as it once did based on the projections. So we're now looking at this and thinking free hit 34 is not completely off the table, because if all of those teams did, let's say Arsenal, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Palace, Everton, Sheffield United and Wolves all did double in 34, then maybe it's back on the table. But we're starting to look at it now a little bit more negatively. I will just say we could still have no doubles in 34. So Bournemouth and Wolves don't have to go into 34. And then all of the other teams obviously don't double in 34 as well. We could have a situation where 34 is just a single game week. So we will get this probably announced before game week 30. But just to note that there could be more teams than we expected in 34, but also less. We also have some further information around doubles in 35, 36 and 37. So Chelsea are now almost definitely going to double in one of 35 or 36 and also 37. So Chelsea could be a really good team to load up on for the back end of the season. You can see at the moment that James from Planet FPL has projected that they will double in 35 along with Brighton. So that would give us a small double game week in 35 for both Brighton and Chelsea. That could be a potential bench boost week or even a free hit week. I look at the fixtures there. Arsenal play against Tottenham. Could you remove your triple Arsenal and go for a triple Brighton instead? Load up on a few more Chelsea players. I quite like that. So game week 35 looking more appealing now. It also does really benefit that strategy of wildcarding in 35 or 36. You can either dead end into that double in 35 and wildcard out of it, or you could wildcard in 35 to load up on Chelsea and maybe a few Brighton players as well. And then the final thing is around game week 37. We now know 100% confirmed that Manchester United, Newcastle, Man City, Spurs and Chelsea will double in game week 37. So we now have some teams that we know for a fact because they can't double in 34, they will have to double in 37. Chelsea obviously have the 2 fixtures to rearrange, so they will double in, like I said, one of 35 or 36 and 37. So now it looks a little bit different, right? Because we were thinking that Manchester United and Newcastle could double in 34. If they're doubling in 37, does this now offer the option of a free hit in 37? Because I probably don't want to have triple Man United and triple Newcastle on my wildcard. So maybe instead what I do is wildcard in 30 or 31. I then look to free hit in 37, and then I would have to find another week to bench boost. So that is one option. Actually, 37 now isn't a bench boost week, but maybe a free hit week. The other option I have is I still stick to the wildcard 31, I still stick to the bench boost 37, but that free hit just goes somewhere else. And like I said, game week 35 looks like a potentially good week for it, but also game week 38. I love the idea of the final game week of the season when we might get quite a few team leaks, but also a few of the players that we own might be rotated and rested. We saw last season, Haaland just didn't play in game week 38. There was a little bit of rotation with Man City. We could see some rotation with Arsenal and Liverpool if the league is wrapped up. They don't have to play all of their players, especially if some players are carrying injuries. So it could be that game week 38 could be a fantastic week. Final game week of the season. Imagine being able to free hit them. So I don't yet know what my chip strategy is because we need the announcements around double game week 34. But I am still looking at a wildcard in 31 and I'm still probably looking at a bench boost or a free hit in 37 and they'll work out where the other chip goes. This definitely does look better now for those that free hit in 29 because obviously the big thing for me was, oh, well, I might play the free hit in 34 and there might be this big double game week. Now 34 looks pretty poor. But I do also think if you did save your free hit, it's not like game over, oh, I should have just free hit in 29 because, well, 29 was pretty disappointing, but also there could be another opportunity in another game week like 35 or 37 or maybe even, like I said, game week 38. So I'd love to know what your current strategy is. Let me know if you haven't played your free hit. Based on these projections, when would you play it? So guys, this is the way that the team is currently looking for game week 30. I am planning to wildcard in game week 31, but I want to say right off the bat that I am probably about, let's say, 10 to 15% likely to actually wildcard in 30. I think the only thing that would push me to wildcard in 30 is if I'm very, very sure on a strategy that I think actually makes sense to just wildcard in 30 because my team could look very good and I know exactly which strategy I want for the surrounding game weeks, or if I get a few injuries over the international break, which can often happen. You can get 3 or 4 injuries. And normally I would say, well, you can just cover that with your bench and your free transfer, which could be possible. But my bench is pretty poor this week. I've got double Luton against Spurs, Taylor against Chelsea. If, let's say, I don't know, like Maddison, Palmer and Gabriel got injured, I don't know how I would cover that with just free. Well, I wouldn't want to take a hit the week before a wild card. And my bench doesn't really help me this week massively. So if I get, let's say, 2+ injuries, I'll probably wildcard. Or if I have a very certain strategy and I just want to go for it, I could do. But the reason that I'm currently leaning towards a Game Week 31 wildcard rather than 30 is more so around the way my team looks now. I actually think this team right now could be slightly better on paper just for Game Week 30 than the wildcard team would be. And the reason I say that is I wouldn't have any Aston Villa on a wildcard. The reason for that is they don't have any remaining doubles. So Pau Torres and Watkins, with a very decent fixture against Wolves at home, they wouldn't be on the wildcard. After that, I also wouldn't have any Spurs, I don't think. And I know people will say, well, you've got to have Heung-min Son, but Porro wouldn't be in there, too expensive, and he doesn't double till 37. Maddison wouldn't be in there because there are so many other midfielders I want to own that I think have slightly better fixtures and or more attacking threat with maybe penalties as well. And also, you can't afford every single player, so I don't think I'd have Maddison. Son, I would love to have. If I had unlimited spots and unlimited money, Son would definitely be in there. We know how brilliant Son is. I'm looking to captain him this week. The issue with Son is, again, there are other players that I probably want slightly more with maybe slightly stronger fixtures. The other thing to note is now Richarlison's back. We could see Son push back to the left with Richarlison through the middle. It's not that Son's bad on the left. We've seen him return quite well on the left, but he's not that brilliant FPL asset. He's still very good, but he's not so essential. And when you look at the other players that you would want on a Game Week 31 wildcard, you'd obviously want Saka, you would want Palmer, you'd maybe want Foden, you'd want Salah, and then you'd probably have to go in a cheaper option than Son. Someone like a Hwang, or around that price. Hwang may not be fit, but someone around that sort of £5 to £6 million price, maybe even cheaper, because you're also trying to squeeze in Haaland. So I just don't think you can afford to squeeze Son into your team due to the amount of spots you have, but also due to budgetary constraints too. So I don't think I'd have any Spurs assets on my Game Week 31 wildcard. So you're telling me if I had to wildcard in 30, I'm removing triple Spurs against Luton at home. That feels awful. Yes, on a wildcard, I'd still have Palmer. I'd maybe improve that Tony spot. Maybe I'd have a slightly better keeper than Neto, although I don't probably think so. I think Neto against Everton at home is arguably one of the better goalkeepers for this week. And then the other thing is, on a wildcard, I definitely have triple Arsenal, and I'd probably have double or triple Man City. They play against each other. So I know I'm playing Gabriel and Saka here, but I would be forced to play probably at least 1 or 2 more, maybe like a Foden and a Haaland as well. So I just don't think my team would be much better in 30 than it would if I was to not wildcard. There obviously are advantages if I was to wildcard. I would have Gusto in here, who's probably better than, I don't know, Pau, maybe even Porro, arguably, against Burnley at home. I might even double up with Petrovic as well. I may be able to get Darwin and Salah into the team against Brighton at home. So I'm not saying that the team would be weak for 30. I just don't think it's that much better that it's worth playing the chip this week. I will just note that over the international break, you're going to have lots of time to tinker with your team and have fun with it and really enjoy the process of building a good wildcard. Game Week 31 is actually a midweek deadline. So if you decide to wildcard a Game Week 31, there's that psychological fact of you're going to have literally like 1 or 2 days on a Monday and Tuesday to decide your wildcard team and tinker with it. So I would say it would definitely be more fun and you'd have more time to wildcard in Game Week 30. So if you're a busy person and someone that likes to spend time thinking about FPL and not just rushing decisions, that might be enough in and of itself to let you wildcard in 30. The other and then final thing I will say just on wildcard 30 versus 31 is I know a lot of people will be looking at it. In Game Week 30, the wildcard's not going to be very different, if at all different, from the wildcard in 31. So the other advantage of 30 is you will gain more price rises from it and price changes in general. You might probably gain, to be honest, because Game Week 31 is a midweek deadline, maybe not as much as normal, but you might gain, considering all the changes that might happen over the international break, as much as 0.5, 0.6 million in team value. So if you've got pretty poor team value, wildcarding in 30 rather than 31, again, might be an advantage. So with all of that said, I am still planning a wildcard in 31. So what I'm essentially looking at is with my 1 free transfer, a 1 week punt. I don't really want to take a hit the week before a wildcard because it's just very unlikely to pay off immediately. And obviously, if it's a 1 week punt and you're going to wildcard the week after, it has to pay off immediately. So I'm currently looking at Wildcard 31 and there for a 1 week punt. And there are a few spots that I can do that. Goalkeeper position is fine. Triple Spurs is fine. Double Aston Villa is fine. Palmer is fine. Outside of that, I've then obviously Gabriel and Saka. This week, I don't particularly want them, but I do have money tied up in them, and I'm almost definitely going to want them on a wild card. So I am hesitant to sell the two of them. But obviously, I could sell someone else in the defence like Doughty or Taylor and then put them in instead of Gabriel. So I don't have to sell Gabriel. I could just bench him. And with Saka, I just think he's such a good asset. I could still see him doing well against Man City. He's on penalties. His data's good. And I expect Arsenal to absolutely go for that game. Despite it being away, and we know Saka is better at home, I still don't think that's a fixture where I have an issue owning Saka. And with defenders, yes, I would quite like to have other defenders like Gusto instead of Gabriel, but defenders, it's just difficult to predict when they'll haul, and I don't know they have the same upside as the attackers. So maybe I am slightly more hesitant using my one free transfer this week on a defender. So with all of that being said, what I'm probably looking at is that Bowen and Tony spot. I think Bowen against Newcastle, by the way, is absolutely fine. But I also think someone like a Mohamed Salah could be much, much better. So I'm looking at that Bowen spot and thinking I could take a 1 week punt on someone with a slightly better fixture or just a better FPL asset as the fifth midfielder. And then with that Tony spot, Manchester United, like, you just never know which version is going to turn up. Something I would say is we basically play basketball at the moment. It is utter chaos. We score lots of goals, seemingly, or at least get the chances to, as evidenced by the game against Liverpool, but we also concede a hell of a lot of chances. So this could be a game where Tony could get 2 or 3 returns. So I don't hate it. But again, I also don't mind the idea of taking a 1 week punt on someone with better fixture. I will discuss in a second the likes of Muniz and Jackson just have better fixtures this week, and therefore you would say maybe slightly higher upside. So that's the way the team currently looks. I don't think much more to say this week because I'm only taking a 1 week punt, but I am probably looking more so at either doing Bowen to a midfielder or one of Morris or Tony to a forward, and then that's it, and then wildcard in 31. So let's take a quick look at my watch list and short list of players that I could bring in for a 1 week punt. So guys, I started to mention some of the players that I was potentially looking at bringing in there for Game Week 30. And again, because this is only for 1 week, I'm specifically looking at who has high upside and which fixtures can I target. So for the defence, whilst I'm unlikely to make a defensive transfer, let's say some of the attackers that I was potentially looking at picked up injuries over the international break. I could see myself doing something like Doughty or Taylor to one of these defenders. Robinson, not just because of what he did in Game Week 29, but I've been looking at him for a while. His attacking data is very, very good. He's playing against Sheffield United in Game Week 30, so Robinson could be a really nice pick. I also think Castagna could be decent too, but a Fulham defender, I wouldn't mind at all. They've just kept a clean sheet against one of the better attacks in the league in Spurs, so I really like the idea of a Fulham defender. I've put Toffolo on here. I know Nottingham Forest defence obviously just conceded to Luton, and they disappointed a few people on their free hit in 29, but they play against Palace in Game Week 30. It's not a perfect fixture, but it is one of the better fixtures on paper. Obviously, Eze is back, and you can see he's on my watch list, but Toffolo's attacking data is actually really promising. So again, another player that I think has some attacking threat, but also has a clean sheet chance as well for Game Week 30. But the one that I'd be really looking at is Gusto. Gusto will almost definitely be on my wildcard in Game Week 31, regardless of my strategy, because the fixtures are good, and he's got 2 further doubles this season, probably in 35 and 37. His attacking data is good. He passes the eye test. I genuinely rate Gusto very, very highly, and he's so cheap as well. So I will own him probably for the rest of the season, but I could just move that transfer forward 1 week and bring in Gusto against Burnley. So those are the defenders I'm looking at, but realistically, it probably would be Gusto. For the midfielders, I've put Eze on here because I actually really like Eze as a player. On penalties, I know I've just said Toffolo's a decent option, but for Eze, in and of himself, it's not an awful fixture against Nottingham Forest. Iwobi's on here as well. Decent attacking data. We spoke about potentially picking him on free hit 29. He didn't end up returning, but his data is still very good. And the fixture, again, as I said, with Robinson against Sheffield United is definitely a high upside pick this week. But is Iwobi that much of an upgrade on Bowen? I'm not sure Bowen to Iwobi inspires me that much. And really, you don't need me to say this. If I've got all the money in the world, which I do, I've got 9.2 million, Bowen to Salah does feel very nice. And I genuinely don't think many people, if anyone, apart from those that wildcard in Game Week 30, will have Salah. And the reason I say that is most people that decided to free hit in 29 kept a hold of Haaland. And I think if you've got a hold of Haaland still, unless you've just got a really good structure, you probably can't get to Salah in one move. So having spoken to a lot of people that free hit in 29, what they're currently planning is maybe rolling the transfer in 30 and then looking to bring Salah in with their 2 free transfers in 31 when Salah plays against Sheffield United. And I think that's a really nice plan. Salah's definitely not essential for Game Week 30, but he also has Brighton at home. And so I look at that and I think, yes, he's not essential and not many people will have him. But if I've got the money to do Bowen to Salah, could I bring in Salah and not only bring in Salah, but maybe even hand him the armband? Again, we've got players such as Son against Luton and Palmer against Burnley who are perfectly good captaincy options and arguably have a better fixture. But Salah is Salah. And I think that could be a really nice differential. If we've got Salah at about 30% ownership and I give him the armband, that's the sort of thing that can really shoot you up the ranks. So Bowen to Salah, a very possible transfer for my team, dependent upon the fitness of what we see during the international break. But by all accounts, he looks back fit. Doesn't look like he's suffering with that injury at all. So I really like Salah as an option. But I also am very, very tempted by a few of the forwards as well. Jackson, I think he's looking much better for Chelsea. And again, we've spoken about that Burnley fixture. I'll probably want 2 or 3 Chelsea assets, probably 3 on my wildcard. Jackson is an option. I'm probably more likely to go for Petrovic at the moment, but Jackson is genuinely someone that needs to be considered. Darwin. You guys know how I feel about Darwin. I've just said Salah's a good option, so inherently Darwin is a good option as well. Do I think he's a better option than Salah? Probably not, but if there are any doubts around Salah or I just decide I really want to keep Bowen, bringing in Darwin allows me to still cover that Liverpool attack, and Darwin has just been really, really good recently. He's still getting the chances. I think his finishing has improved this season too. And again, no one's going to have Darwin really, apart from those that wildcard in 30. So still quite a differential pick. And then I will finish by putting Muniz on here. I think he came off with a small injury in Game Week 29. So we'll have to assess if he is a serious doubt for 30, which obviously I don't yet know. But if he is fit, I know it feels weird taking a 1-week punt on a £4.6 million player, but the data's great, the eye test's great, the output's great, the fixture's perfect. Muniz is arguably the best forward to own in Game Week 30. So no issues with bringing him in, no issues with taking a punt on such a cheap option. And again, if there are any concerns around Salah or I decide to keep Bowen, bringing in Muniz for Sheffield United could genuinely be a really, really nice move. Again, a player that I don't think many will have. A lot of people that owned him in 29 would have been on free hit. So he feels like a really decent differential. So those are the players I'm looking at the moment. As you can see, I've highlighted in orange the 3 players that I would be most likely to bring in at the moment in each position, which would be Gusto in defence, Salah in midfield, and Muniz in the forward spot. So let's now take a look at my team with the planned transfer in place to see how it will look going into Game Week 30. So guys, as you could tell by the way that I was talking about him and the asset that he is, my current planned transfer this week is Bowen to Salah. As I said, I could see this backfiring because I actually quite like that fixture for Bowen, but the opportunity to get Salah in for free just feels too good to pass up if he's fit and available. Brighton have been okay defensively, but I would even be tempted to give him the armband. And again, it's not about the Brighton, it's more about the Salah. And Salah is just such a brilliant asset. And maybe because he's been off at AFCON and then he's not been fit, we've maybe forgotten just how good that man is. But I back him to outscore anyone in most weeks. So I would be very tempted to give him the armband. That would obviously give me 4.1 in the bank and no further free transfers. So I would ideally make no further transfers beyond that. But if Salah is a doubt or I want to go elsewhere, you've obviously heard the players that I'm considering. I think the team is looking really good this week. To have Salah, not many people I think will. To have triple Spurs, again, I don't think that many will because most people that had all those Spurs free hit them in. A lot of people will be returning back to their team without triple Spurs. So I actually look at this team. I think it looks really good. I would be hopeful of a decent week. And then the idea would be to wildcard in 31. But like I said, don't be surprised if I get a few injuries over the international break or we get any further surprises if I just decide to hit the button in 30. Because I don't think the 30 and 31 wildcard would differ too much. Let me know down below what you think of the transfer plans. And let me know what your plan is as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 30 transfer plans video. This will be the final video for about a week. I'm going to have a bit of time off over the international break, but I will be back in the lead up to Game Week 30 with wildcard drafts, double information, and much, much more. If you did enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button. If you're new around here and you've not yet subscribed, please do consider doing that as well. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.